Hello, everyone. This is 𝘗𝘀𝘳𝘐𝘪. Welcome to our closing day, which we just had open the fifth iterations online exhibition. So you can just see all magnificent 30 works uploaded to our Instagram account, and soon it will be on our website. And right now we're going to have the conversation with the participating artists of our fifth iteration. Simon is going to moderate this carousel conversation, and I would love to thank you again for everyone's collaboration, every heart beating at once for our beloved Palestine. And yeah, we always see the fire. Simon, it's on you.
Wonderful. Thank you, 𝘗𝘀. And hello, everybody. Congratulations with the opening of the Through the Window exhibition 𝘲𝑗𝑠𝑓𝑖RE. The theme of this exhibition is obviously in solidarity with Palestine and the liberation of Palestine and Gaza. We chose the theme's title, 𝘲𝑗𝑠𝑓𝑖RE, from a musical performance, a ritual, a prayer that has been performed by 𝘮𝘦𝘵𝘩𝘦𝘥 We might be able to share it also in the chat if anybody's interested in seeing this video. As always, I'm just going to give a little bit of an introduction of Through the Window for those who are here for the first time, which I don't think anybody would be a first-timer by now, since this is our fifth iteration. We started in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, when nightlife and art spaces were closing down, and we thought we need some money, and as queer artists and nightlife workers. And that's when we started with Zekichan, 𝘗𝘀, and I, between Turkey and the Netherlands. And at first we started by inviting 5 artists in Turkey and in the Netherlands. And those artists each themselves also invite another artist. So a kind of trickle-down curatorial setup where the Through the Window community just has been growing and growing. But then several years ago, with the support of Prince Claus Fund, which has graciously been supporting Through the Window for the last few years, we also included some seed awardees who are joining us, who have been joining us. And this is how we got to 30 works. The works are currently online on the Through the Window Instagram. And I really, really, really encourage you to go and look at those works. They're quite striking, and many of them are specifically made for this exhibition, and others are made in deep alliance and proximity with the exhibition. So please go there, if not right now, because you will be seeing 6 of our artists today who are speaking about their work. Lucky for us, but do go after this conversation or after the DJ. And go and see the works. Okay. Before we continue, I want to invite those whom are here in the room and those whom are here on YouTube. I want to invite you into a collective scream, just so that we can all unmute ourselves and get a little ugly. I don't know if this resonates with anybody else, but I've been wanting to scream and scream and scream. And I've been holding it in, and I just want to see if there's anybody here who would like to join in on the collective scream. If so, please unmute.
Yes.
Yeah? Shall I count down?
Yes.
Okay, great. 1, 2, 3, by the way. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you. That said, I also want to say there is interpretation from Turkish to English and English to Turkish. Use the interpretation button in Zoom, and I wanted to thank Esra and Oner for providing translation, not just today, but in all of our iterations, and we've been so blessed to have them with us. That said, Lucila, would you like to open us? Take us away.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Perfect. First off, thank you, the whole team of Through the Window. I am super happy that I got the chance to make a very specific work about the current situation in Palestine, but more so about oppression and how it sort of trickles down to the globally. Like it's not just situated at one, like where the tension is at its highest in the war zone. So I think for me, being based in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, it's important to make work that is very close to me, that it's somehow very honest. And I was encouraged to think about the sea fire, seeing fire. Oh, there it is. Look, there is my text. The courage to think about what it means to see fire and what it means to live in tension and what it means to interpret tension in all different kinds of ways. And at that point, I was working in a sorting center, like a package sorting center. Like there are like many, like globally, there are package centers everywhere. And I found myself in a situation where I had my own tension, working that sort of job, but also with the people that became my colleagues. And I soon started to realize that the tension of this workspace, which is like a 3-hour morning shift that you share, and that the people who work there all have their own reasons for being there, and not, they can differ. And there's a different urgency for everybody who's working these kind of jobs, right? They're low paid, there's insecurity, if they find you not equipped or suitable, they can fire you any moment. Like this sort of precarious situation creates tension. It creates that you embody some kind of fire, that you are working through fire every day, because when you don't have money, or when you're not viable to have another job. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And then obviously what happens while working those jobs in the Netherlands, a lot of these jobs are they are sort of put aside for people who are seeking asylum from outside of Europe. And I didn't realize that beginning the job. I mean, I had my own problems. I was just going to work this job, but then I noticed that, like, for my team, let's say 15 people, I think 13 were staying at the seeking asylum centers in the locality of Rotterdam. So this dynamic that sort of happened between me and being the only female who worked that line, and these men, became quite striking. And it was actually quite beautiful in the sense that they were a little bit surprised by my presence, because it's kind of a physical job. You have to be very alert, and there's a lot of physical labor in it. So the guys immediately noticed that, okay, this person is there's an urgency for her to be here as well, and let's see where it goes. But then there is the language barrier, and so it became a lot of gestural communication. And within the gestural communication, the tension also became very apparent. And also the absences. People come and go at this job, and nobody really knows why, because there's just limited speech happening, actually, because I don't speak I speak Dutch and English, a little bit of French, but I definitely don't speak Arabic or Turkish or any kind of Eastern languages. So, but still you have this, you have a relationality that's being built. And I think for this work, I tried to sort of translate this way of being together, and also within the characters that I'm describing in the story, to put across what everybody's urgency is for being there, and what is the tension, and what is the reason that they're there, and what does it mean when you experience those shifts together. And I found it very interesting to work for this Instagram framework, that we have like 10 images, and I really wanted to make just like a little story that would cover this whole 10 images. So I really tried to figure out the placement and sort of concentrate on aspects that I found important, sort of the tension, the time, that sort of the passing of time, but also the standing still of time, but also the stress and the underlying tension of the characters amongst them. So I thought it was quite beautiful to be forced to think in 10 frames, actually. That was for me a very exciting thing to do. I think, there's also one thing that I wanted to add an image, right? So because still Instagram is very visually, and I was a bit afraid that just a text-based work would maybe, not be as interesting, or not be, so I think, okay, let's also find an image that would sort of lure the reader in. If I would get them through the first sort of image, which is basically just a title, then would be an image of a hand. And that's a print I made last year. And I think it's a collagraph print. So it's like a sort of collage printmaking technique. And I thought it worked quite beautifully, because it sort of represents this, in the hand, you see all these kind of figurines. So it feels, and working on the sorting belt is very much a physical labor. So it is with your hands, and it is working, and it is sort of, your hands at one point, they hurt. There is some tension happening there. So I thought it would fit quite nice as a cover image, if you will. So I don't know how much I'm on time. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, no, you're getting to 5 minutes, but and somebody's saying beautiful work, Lucila.
Oh, thank you.
Which I very much agreed with. Also the rhythm. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Because like reading it, there's a rhythm between also the Dutch and the English. So there's moment where there's like a kind of Dutch citation from the scenes that you're describing. So there's a kind of rhythm there in the language, but there's also a rhythm, and you've pointed to this kind of, right, in this sort of counting, and the numbers, the numerical of, I'm responsible for packaging 12, 14, 16, or something like that. And then of course the coffee break. And I'm sort of interested also when you just said it, what occurred to me, sorry if this is becoming a long-winded question, but what just occurred to me when you said about like absentee. So right, you don't know if people are staying or going, and they might just be gone the next day. And I was thinking about rhythm, how rhythm needs absence, or it needs like a pause or an absency in order for it to become rhythm. Otherwise, it's just a sound. And I was thinking, I just wanted to ask you what your own thinking was around rhythm in this work, not just like the 10 Instagram images, but also you create a kind of rhythm in the score almost that you make when we go up for 𝘗𝘳𝘳 in the images, where you're kind of visually describing one more down where everybody is standing.
Yeah.
So it's the next image, I think. Yeah. Do you want to say more?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So like throughout this period, I think I've been working this job for 6 months, and throughout this period, there's a moment it starts, there's a moment it ends, and in between, a lot of things happen. It's very clear. It's like 3 hours, and at 7, the belt starts going and the packages come. So there's like the moment it starts, the music blasts through the whole the surface of the sorting center, and the rhythm of the belt is also something that they change sometimes, which is quite intense because you work in behind each other, like next to each other, and the first person can already screw up in a sense, right? If they're not paying attention, it affects the rest of the belt. So everything has like sort of this trickling down system. Like if the first person is handling it okay, then a second person can sort of, yeah, they have a good start. But the rhythm of these packages is quite interesting because it goes up and down. It is like a intense flow, or like moments when there is absence indeed. And when you sort of, when something goes wrong, when there is a technical error in the belt, when all of a sudden things stop and you sort of stand there looking at each other, not able to communicate actually. And I think this sort of how the packages arrive at this belt also very, like I don't know what the packages will be every day, or how heavy they are. There's so much uncertainty even for the people who hire us. They don't know what's arriving in the morning, and for me it was very important to find this sort of constant pace, like as a underlayer bass. So if you think about it in a musical term, like there's this constant pace, and this is sometimes disrupted with absence or with acceleration, right? And everybody has to deal with that. Everybody has to deal with that and deals with that actually in different ways. And I thought that could be translated very well, that rhythm also in the characters that I sort of try to introduce in this story. And in terms of the numbers, I mean, it's in that sense, it's very, working that belt, you really are a number, right? I mean, it's not like the contracts are not great. It really is like they tell you, if you make too much mistakes, you're out. So you're constantly thinking about the numbers. And when I was on a certain position, for instance, position 3, that means 12, 14, 16, that's definitely mine. But then it can be a little bit before 12 and it can be a little bit after 16. So you're constantly thinking, okay, that's my numbers, but looking to my left and looking to my right, are they handling? Are they coping? If not, I will take more numbers. So you're constantly sort of, negotiating numbers. And the interesting part was that at one point in the morning, they start shuffling you. So they place you at the position on the belt. And at one point, I was standing on a position, and Wally, actually the person who's always on in front of me, was standing somewhere else. But him not being very literate, he could only be in that position because he had those numbers, those few numbers ingrained in his mind. He could not handle actually different numbers. So he would really get stressed if by all of a sudden he would be taken out of his position. So this thinking in numbers, it became so metaphorical. Like you are held, you have to be there. You cannot be late because the belt is already going, and those numbers then will be, if you're late, the numbers will be negative for the people who hire you. It's like immediate monetary, how do you say it? Impact for the people who hire you. So it's like yeah, it's numbers and rhythm basically.
Yeah.
All the way through. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lucila. We're already gonna go to the next.
Yes, of course. Yes, sure.
But I really hope that people take the time to read the whole story. truly worth it. And I believe that you're also thanking editor, like for editing, you've thanked Pelumi, who's also
Yes,
contributing artist to this exhibition. So also go check Pelumi's work.
definitely.
All right, Yana, are you ready to join us?
Yes, I'm ready. Hi everyone. So like I don't speak Turkish and my English is not that much good, so I wanna read slowly. While you will put my slides, right? Okay. So first, I thank the opportunity given to me to be the first Syrian in this project who break the stereotypes about refugees in Turkey, who are often unfairly and inhumanly treated and judged for political and racial reasons. Someone once told me, "You are a Syrian after everything that happened in your country, while 1 million people were killed, 14 million displaced, and 1.5 billion disappeared in prisons. After all this, you are talking about Palestine and Palestinians? Go speak about your own country." The answer to this claim is very simple. Do you need to be women to advocate for women's rights? Do you need to be dark-skinned to advocate for the rights of people with dark skin? Do you need to be LGBTQ plus to advocate for LGBTQ plus rights? The answer is no, because art truly shines when it transcends the boundaries of identity, race, gender, and color. I will take the opportunity in my own Syrian way to say that being Syrian is being Palestinian, and being Palestinians mean being Turkish as well. Why? Because we simply must return to history and not allow it to be cut, as the Israelis are doing now. After the collapse of the Ottoman Empire in the last century, France and Britain was dividing and stealing our region. There were two individuals, Sykes and Biko, in one session, and just like one session, with a simple roller and single pen, divided the Levant. Levant, it's Syria, like it's called the Great Syria, Lebanese, Jordan, and Palestine. So this Sykes and Biko, like with just like one pen and ruler, divided the Levant. There was never a day when like there was difference between Palestinians, Syrians, Lebanese, or different food, or different culture, or different flags. We were one people, divide once in 1916, and now they are trying to completely erase us. So for my art, the idea came to me when I saw the shocking news every day. Israel and the global media have reduced Palestinian to just numbers, blocking content that mention Palestine, Gaza, or anything related. People quickly began using watermelon as symbol for Palestinian. By the way, Palestinian watermelon is like best testing and purest, free from genetic modifications. I collect the seeds, the watermelon seeds, and try to make a Palestinian kufiya with them. The kufiya is a national and culture symbol for the Palestinian people. Black and white kufiya, like you are saying now in these slides, it's the famous one, the famous type of kufiya, I mean. The black represent pain and suffering, and white represent peace and hope. I wanted to symbolize that each seat represents a resilient Palestinian body, and each seat will produce another defined person. Together, these seats will generate a united Palestinian generation, just like the pattern of the 𝘗𝘗𝘳𝘗. In the other image, Palestinian artist Ahmed Aoude, which is like you can see him now, from Gaza, shows seeds growing in every direction from his hand. It signifies that the Palestinian people have never and will never disappear. At the end of my story, I also wanted to highlight that nature in Palestine faces violence too, with cats, dogs, and agricultural lands being destroyed and devastated. In conclusion, my journey in creating this piece was filled with sadness and sorrow. Not long ago, just like 5-6 years before, we were treating my brother from the Charbonnel wonder after Syrian regime planes showered our home with rockets, and like in our house, like which take from my father 65 years to just have this house, and like they destroyed, not Israel, the Syrian regime. Freedom in Palestine for the river to the sea. And thank you for this opportunity.
Yana, thank you so much. Do you mind if I ask you another question, Yana, about the work?
Yes, sure. Like, I will try to understand because like my English is not that much good. But yeah, like I would love to answer your question.
I would love to ask you a little bit more about the performance of the work itself. So the doing of the performance, and because we of course see the documentation, and how was it for you to work with a performer, and to actually, you know, work with the seeds, like the physical feeling of it? Would you want to share more about that?
Yeah, actually, like it was a journey, like a lovely journey to collect them, to dye them sometimes, to use the material to stuck them like in a shape to make the 𝘗𝘗𝘳𝘗, and also to like a big thank to Ahmed, like the Gaza guy who come to me and like support me, and like we stuck together with Moja, like the seats on his body, and we took the photos. It was like a lovely journey to do that, and like it return all of us to the suffer of being from this area, to being Syrian, Palestinian, Sudanese, like because we all share the same stories, the same like trouble, wars, like racism also, like we all like treated not as human, like we don't, and we don't deserve this. So like this journey, like it was like harsh because like as I'm a refugee, like if I go out from my house, I don't know if I will come back or not. And I have to do this art because I believe that I have to make change, and I have to say for all people that even I'm refugee, and even like I don't have a fucking ikamet, but I can work and I can let all the people listen to my voice. And this is what I did, and I'm really proud of myself. And thank you for this opportunity again.
Thank you so much for contributing. And I just want to say, if people want to ask a question, the mic is open. And you also mentioned Muja having helped you with the seats on Ahmed. And Muja is also here. So shout out to Muja. I was wondering, unless there's questions from anybody else, I was wondering if, as you were also referring to the healing of your body, or of your brother at and your father's house, if this kind of work, like doing a kind of ritualistic almost performance and then having photography from it, if this is something that you have done before, or what kind of artistic practice you usually tend to?
Actually, to be honest, Through the Window gave me the opportunity to make my first art project, and this was my first art project. And I would love also like to come back to Syria. Also, I have a lot of ideas to do there, but not now actually because of the war. But this was my first art project, to be honest.
Wow.
I start with Palestine actually, and Palestinians deserve, like we all deserve to do that.
Well, then we're really proud to have you, Yana, your first artwork. It's a really striking work. Thank you. Let's see.
I'm with you.
Can we invite La Lola in? Thank you so much, Yana.
Thank you a lot. Thank you.
La Lola Rizo.
Hello everyone. So I have a presentation. Do I project it or would you guys?
Maybe Zeki-chan can project it?
I shared it via email.
And otherwise,
Yeah, I will.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for the invitation to meet. Like very I mean, this is a very relatable issue, right? I think the question of how this the what's happening in Palestine is important for all of us. Like it has to do with the fact that we come, you know, we all experience this colonial violence, right? Sorry, I think I had shared a document, but it's fine. We can look at these images. So when I was working with these images, I was very interested in working with like the common imaginaries between Nicaragua and Palestine, right? Nicaragua and Palestine, we actually share a history, right? Just like a little bit of context, Nicaragua is very famous because we were one of like the only country besides Cuba where during the Cold War, like there was a successful like guerrilla, right? That kicked out American occupation, right, or American proxies, right? And in that sense, historically there has been links between Nicaragua and Palestine, right? Actually, like even during the dictatorship back in the like 50s, 60s, 70s, right? The National Guard that was US sponsored was equipped with Israeli-made equipment, right? So it's something that happened, right? There's a lot of like Nicaragua Palestine exchange. In that sense, I mean, I think that unfortunately we're not going through a good moment, right? Nicaragua, like we know there's like a dictatorship. And a few years ago, we had a very strong situation with an actual revolt and government violence, right? And in that sense, we also know that what's happening right now, not only like in Palestine and other places around the world, there's this like colonial imperial state violence, right? So a lot of these images come to mind, right? Thinking about covering your face, you know, hiding your identity for security, right? Thinking about the idea of being like the underdog, right? Like, you know, we think about this idea of like David and Goliath, right? The stone. It's like this act of defending yourself with whatever you have laying around. That's something that's like a shared imaginary, right? Okay, yeah, that's the presentation. Thank you. So, if you could jump to the third slide. The one with, yeah, that one. So here, for example, this is what I'm talking about right now. So, like we know there's like this idea of like, you know, like David and Goliath, right? Like in Nicaragua, actually one of our like national holidays, this battle, one of my great grandfathers participated where, like it's famous because we kicked out, like they kicked out, like American military who were trying to take over the country and, you know, like enslave the Caribbean, right? There was this like project. So this is something that to us, it's very latent, it's very like current, it's something that we still experience, right? So that was one of the parts that I was interested in exploring. If we could move to the next slide. The other thing that to me is like very important, like living, like being from Central America, like there's this very important relationship with the land, right? Like with volcanoes, which are often used as a metaphor, right? For you know, like the way people act, right? Like this like uncontrollable, primal, explosive nature, right? And there's this idea of, you know, being related to the landscape. Like I see this volcano all the time, like almost every day when I go out of my house. Like not this close, but I can see it, you know, from kilometers far away. But it's also this size that they're like truly spiritual, right? So going here, like to do the photographs, it was actually a super interesting situation. Because even though the place is like polluted, unkept, right? Like you can feel it, right? Like there's something so like primal about the connection with the land. Um, so that was something that I think it's very relatable, right? Like being connected to the land, especially when there's so many people like in exile right now. Like you want to come back, you don't want to leave, right? If we could go to the next slide. The other element I was super interested in working with was you know, with the huipil, right, which is this skirt, right? It's a national skirt. It comes, of course, from the colonization process. And it's this like very nationalistic symbol. People usually like, you know, they will ornament them with whatever themes, right? And there's even, you know, like some queer cultural expressions in Nicaragua where they use this, like what you're seeing right now on the left, which is baile negras, which is these people from Masaya where you have like two men, one dressing up as a man and another as a woman, dancing together, basically like colonial cross-dressing, right? Making a comment on like Spanish and local relationships, right? So that's something I was super interested in working with. And that part was super interesting, like the skirt, if we could move on to the next slide, because it was like the number one like element for the for the piece, right? Here I just wanted to show quickly, this is the images from the Somoza dictatorship and the National Guard, which, you know, they were like funded and armed by the US, right? And a lot of the equipment was made like in Israel, right? So we know there's this like state that imposes colonial violence. And then, you know, finally the finished images, which I was okay, sorry. So then, just showing a little bit of process. These are some of the sketches that are presented to the craftsman from Masaya, who made the skirt, right? So that was always the idea of like mixing those imaginaries, right? And transforming the huipil into a watermelon, right? Which I think is super interesting because, you know, we're also like a tropical country, so there's that thing with like fruit, right? Which I think is something everyone likes. Finally, I mean, the finished images, I think there's something like, to me it was like a very powerful experience. Like, I mean, it was very engaging, you know, collaborating with other like queer people, locals, like to produce them, right? But just going to this side that is like so spiritual, that has so much meaning, right? But also, you know, like using putting your body there, and you know, I think there's this feeling of like censorship, right? Like there's like a covered mouth, there's like pain, there's an explosiveness, right? I haven't experienced what Palestinians are experiencing. I cannot speak from there, but I can speak from the things that the place that I live in has gone through, right? And I think there's like some sort of empathy, right? Because we all experience, unfortunately, these sorts of violence. So I wanted to touch the issue from there, right? This like feeling of this like primal scream, right? Like you want to scream, but you can't, right? There's like censorship. And then of course this mixture of, you know, the symbols of protest, of the nationalists, the stone, the face mask, queering it, right? There's this idea with mainstream drag, where drag often celebrates like opulence or monarchies or figures in power, which is, very problematic. I think there's also like the capacity to explore other imaginaries, right? Other imaginaries that speak of our current situation and that are more relatable. So yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is really great. Do you, you know what's interesting, that for me, when you were talking about also like the balaclava and like covering one's face for security reasons, it struck me that the first time I saw your images, I kept thinking that there was something hidden under the skirt, under the watermelon skirt. And I was wondering if this kind of surveillance element of the width, whether that being, an actual obfuscating of something, or like whether it's an actual disguising of something, or whether it's like even the suggestion of something being disguised, whether this is something that was resonating for you as well, also thinking about surveillance in terms of the covering of the face, like you're responding to it both from the level of like being silenced, but then there's also like the using those kind of technologies of surveillance against themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, several things going on. I actually made like this like super cool boots. I don't have them like in the moment that are a direct reference to one of our martyrs, Sandino. And I think it was convenient that the skirt covered them, because they could have gotten in trouble for queering that object. But that was like completely incidental, right? But of course, yeah, like, I mean, I think that mixture between what you reveal and what you don't, and hiding your identity, because I mean, I wasn't sure if I was like safe doing what I was doing, right? Like from a state level, right? I think thankfully, like the current government, like they use like in a rather opportunistic way the issue of Israel. I mean, it's been on the news like in Nicaragua talking about Israel. But you never know. I mean, you're dealing with an authoritarian regime, right? So you have to like you have to camouflage your discourses to like play with it. What can you say and what you can't?
Yeah. And those boots were accidentally obscured.
Yes. In one of the images, I think you can kind of see the heel. I mean, a lot of things happened during the shooting, like like, I mean, I almost killed myself like in the rocks with a big boots. Like my car got stuck in the sand. But yeah, they were incidentally obscured. I also thought that skirt, I mean, the symbol of the watermelon was the most important, so that's what we prioritized.
Yeah. And are there any other of the symbolisms that you would like to talk? I'm also thinking, for example, about the nils that are prevalent in the image.
The nils, sorry?
The nils.
Oh, the nils.
Nils. Maybe there's nothing there, and that's also totally fine. Sometimes nils just look good. But I was wondering if there's like, in terms of the composition, also with the volcano, if there's anything else that you would want to mention before we invite Miloš in.
Well, to me, I mean, it's something like more subjective. Like the more I do drag, the more like queer, the more non-binary it becomes. So there's this things like nails. They're usually like, I mean, they're like hostile, right? There's like a gesture, that like tenderness, like handling with like a stone that's not just gonna be thrown, right? Like there, like in my head, like there's this like contradiction between like the materials and the images, right? So like, how do you use this like sort of like aggressive feminine archetypes, right, and mix them? Like, how do you play with them?
Yeah, wonderful.
I mean, I think that the state does not have like we shouldn't antagonize violence. Like, violence comes because that's the only thing, the only option you have, like if someone's shooting at you or someone's attacking you, like you have to defend yourself, right? So maybe those symbols that we use in an antagonistic way, like usually, like, I mean, they're not necessarily that way, right? Like there are things that we need to like put on the table, right? Like those situations you have to negotiate those things. So I mean, it's something that goes along those lines.
Yeah. No, it is also really interesting how, because of placing the performer in this space, right? The pristineness of the natural landscape is kind of broken. And then also you're showing your presentation, like the throwing of stones and the resistance that happens through that also starts to reverberate in your final images, the possibility of picking up the stones that the standing on. So it's really wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I greatly appreciate it. Free Palestine.
Miloš, can we invite you in?
Yes. Hello. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be joining this wonderful group of artists and practitioners. I will be talking a bit about the premises of the work and maybe introducing my practice and the work that is now available on the platform. So my name is Miloš. I'm an artist. I was born in November 1989 in the former Yugoslavia, at the brink of its collapse, so to speak, and into the Bosnian War, which I've experienced as a child, and which has been a very formative event in both my personal and my professional life. So much of my artistic practice is actually concerned with articulating or dealing with the social, political, but also the emotional aftermath of war, addressing issues like fragmentation, dissolution, memory, and loss. So I've explored this topic mostly through moving image or film or lecture formats, which relied on attempts to articulate or to some degree formulate the complexities related to the experience of war and conflict. And as you know, the Bosnian people have suffered through and experienced ethnic cleansing and genocide during the Bosnian War from 92 to 95, which was the catalyst also for my own history of displacement. And being witness to the growing and painful repetition of this history, not limited to, but especially maybe following October 7th and the ongoing occupation and genocide of the Palestinian people, I have often found myself at a loss of words in the last year. And one of my coping mechanisms in such moments has been to turn to poetry. And there's a poem which I like and which deeply resonated with me on many levels and has informed also this project that I have been working on in the last period. Which is by Palestinian poet Marwan Makul, who says that in order for me to write poetry that isn't political, I must listen to the birds. And in order to hear the birds, the warplanes must be silent. And the question, I mean, this question of if the warplanes will be silent or have ever been silent really sort of struck a chord with me, especially because maybe my generation born in the late 80s in the former Yugoslavia didn't have this temporal time frame of before the war. And how this sort of manifested in me is that I have always had maybe a heightened sensitivity to the sonic aspects of warfare. It's somehow stored somewhere in my system. For example, if I listen to music, I can sort of dissect and recognize the tonalities and musical arrangements in the beats that match sort of the sonic dimensions of warfare. But especially listening maybe to the musical or cultural production of Yugoslavia in the late 80s and early 90s, it was always evident to me that there was a sort of presence of these types of tonalities that in some way announced or alluded an impending sense of catastrophe that was to unravel with the start of the Balkan Wars. So all of this actually led me to focus on this specific moment where I zoomed in on the 3 years that led up to the Bosnian War. So this sort of interregnum period from November 89, from the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was a major sort of catalyst event that would see sort of the demise of the former East. And in Yugoslavia, this meant that the tensions were somehow already palpable, but the sort of war dimensions haven't arrived yet. And this notion of anticipating an impending disaster is a sort of highly compelling and complicated position, which I think is also widely resonant in today's world. So the question I asked myself in this project, which I have been working on in the last period, was, could the war have been predicted in music, or was imminent catastrophe already traceable in the cultural and musical production of that time? And I wanted to develop a sort of objective or technological stance to test this. And the way that I did this is by working with AI or working with algorithms. So the way that algorithms are being used today is, or neural networks or machine learning systems, is by sort of calculating future probabilities. No, so they rely on being fed a lot of information from the past in order to create pattern correlations and project future probabilities. And this work was produced in actually 2 phases alongside my 2 collaborators, Gaspard Boss and Miguel Ribeiro, with whom I worked closely on this project over the last few months, building the technical pipelines and developing the scripts and codes that were necessary. So we started by training an AI model with a large library of warfare sounds, much of which was sourced from the Balkan Wars, but a great deal also came from the Ukrainian war, since it's very well documented. And we trained an AI system to well recognize these types of sounds, and then unleashed it on developers access Spotify, where we sourced everything that they had that was tagged as Yugoslav music from November 89 to April 92. So from the fall of the Berlin Wall to the outbreak of the Bosnian War. So we performed a very sort of detailed analysis of we asked this AI model to extract, right, these correlating parts, which resulted in a sort of sonic archive of 40 minutes of sounds, which were all extrapolated from a total of 564 musical tracks. And the second step was to somehow work with this library of sounds by reconfiguring it, or like turning it into a composition. And I decided that I didn't want to step in myself. I didn't want to compose it, but to continue this trail of sort of algorithmically generating a soundscape or a composition. And the second step was actually by looking at closely how love songs are made, or how they are structured in terms of repetition and yeah, like the sort of logics of a love song. So the result is actually this generative composition, which is real-time powered by algorithms, which means that it doesn't have a clear beginning or an end. It is just processual and never repeating, which if you listen to it, is actually in a lot of ways very sinister. It has a lot of sinister qualities, which I think is a very telling friction between a sort of love song and what you actually hear. It's actually a lamentation, if you will, I think. So the work employs, well, AI to detect and harness war-related sounds in the musical production of a bygone area, but also tries to reshape this pre-conflict audio social milieu into a composition that continues to haunt and echo through the present. So this is my contribution also for Through the Window, which features a unique 90-minute recording of this procedural composition, which I found to be quite apt for the format and also the theme that you proposed. And though the work is to a large extent rooted in my personal politics of location, I hope that at the same time it can raise questions, highlight a sense of solidarity, and also points to our entangled struggles and our shared histories and our lost as well as our aspired futures.
Thank you so much, Miloš. I think it's really special the way you've combined those two, and like how you're creating almost like the question of an apocalyptic sound, and whether sound in the present can be read as a kind of as a future projection. Not to paraphrase, like not to reduce the complexity of the work, but and I'm just wondering, since it's a 19 minutes recording, whether you can give us a bit of a description, if you feel able to do that, because of course it's hard to describe sound, but of the kinds of sounds we might hear, or maybe an analysis of what you hear in that recording.
So the composition is being created in the moment. It is never being repeated, and the library of sounds are all real existing musical songs, no, from this era. So anything from pop to rock to folk music, and there's a great variety of sounds, and it's usually sound bites that are 3 to 6 seconds long, that I stripped from the lyrics, so was more interested in the sort of atmospheric tonalities, not in the lyrical dimensions of that I didn't want to work with. So there is, it's hard to describe because it's always different and it's totally out of my control. It sort of hallucinates something in the moment. So a lot of the times when I run it, it chooses according to the logic of a love song, and tries to sort of synthesize these sound bits together. The result is often very sort of dark and sinister, but then sometimes it has beautiful, more gentle folkloric elements. And in this sense, it's highly unpredictable. And depends, it really depends what it sort of captures and according to what logic it decides to synthesize and paste these tonalities.
Yeah, and then maybe as a last question also about the visual, because we've been seeing now the visual that accompanies the recording. Why do we see this?
Yeah. Well, it's like I laid out, or as you maybe can imagine, quite an intricate and technically demanding project. So it's something that I've been working or developing in the last couple of months, which was also in parallel to your invitation. And I'm happy that the actual composition of the sounds can be listened to and is featured on your platform. But I developed it also in my last year of the Rijksacademy in Amsterdam. So what you see now is part of a presentation that I did during the Open Studios in Amsterdam in the Rijksacademy, where I ran the composition in a sort of installation that I built for that purpose, that was made out of charred wood. So it's a sort of abandoned film set, abandoned place of image production where only the sound reverberates and resonates. And the image is one of the charred speakers that I built myself for the purpose of that installation.
Thank you so much, Miloš. Thank you for being part of Through the Window.
Thanks for the invite.
İlkin, we would like to invite you up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much to you and 𝘗𝘀 for allowing me to be a part of Through the Window this year. I want to share my screen to show my work, if that's possible.
You should be able to. Yeah, there we go.
For this work, when I learned that that I can be a part of Through the Window this year, I, as a photographer and videographer, I am usually at the presence of what I try to capture. And I take photos from real actions usually. But for this project, since I am in Istanbul, I wanted to do some representations of as with image-wise and also the feeling-wise. And here we see Anatolia. Anatolia is the performer here we see. She is a queer performer artist from Istanbul. And she is sitting under the rubbles that burned down her place where in the story where she was living, and in fires, and survived from the fires and still alive in the fire. However, it's not like resisting with some power. Instead, this is more like before that, like before going to the street and being resistant about it. Instead, here it's more she has the sadness of losing, of because she lost where she was living, and she doesn't have anyone else because probably they were injured. So so I try to represent the inhuman conditions that going on in Palestine. And with this one, I also try to focus on losing your home, where you consider as your home, as the land, as the country, as the land where you're from and where your generations are from, losing those lands, and also losing the home that maybe you were living for generations, or maybe where you were born and raised. And this is also happening in some different levels, like this is also an issue that we can see with queer people in Palestine, of course, and also in Istanbul. It also reminded me, when I was thinking about this, it also reminded me what's going on in Beyoğlu, Istanbul, right now, in the last few months, where on Bayram Street, a lot of transgender people lost their homes. Their homes were sealed, so they weren't able to go in, and probably that area will be gentrified and sold for with bigger projects, and they are not wanted in their home. And it's happening right now. So with this is, as I said, losing your home and still alive from that, still have power to live, even though you're on fire, you are resilient to fire, but at the same time feeling the feeling that you lost the people you love and the place you live.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
I just want to add, Anatolia was the one who made the dress. She made the dress as a whole. And then we burnt down the dress, and then I added the flames on a digital layer in Photoshop, so flames weren't there actually. And actually, Anatolia wasn't in this building either. I took Anatolia, the photo of Anatolia herself, just after her show in Istanbul at night. So we went out to the street and I took a photo of Anatolia on the street, sitting in this dress, in this burnt down dress. And then earlier I took a photo of this building. This building is an abandoned building from city center in Istanbul, in a place called Haydarpaşa area. And in this Haydarpaşa area, there are some abandoned old guest houses and workshops. And that place is not used for a really long time. And there are some plans that they could be hotels and luxury touristic areas in the future. But I thought that for this project also, saving how it is right now would be nice. And the following pieces were exactly right there, actually. I didn't add them up. I just added some flames around, and I added the Anatolia over there because I wasn't able to take a photo of Anatolia in that place because that place is run by the government, and I unfortunately couldn't get a permission to take Anatolia there and take the photo there. But I would love to do it there actually in real place, real time.
Yeah. That's really wonderful also for you to add about where and how the photo was taken, because it was really something that I was wondering about. In some ways, what it makes me think about, because you were mentioning also like the gentrification of streets in Istanbul, in Beyoğlu, especially right now, especially like the gentrification of trans people out of the city or out of where they are living or where they are working, whether space and like the sort of portraying a story through space is something that you do a lot in your work. And if you wanted to share a little bit more about that.
I'm so sorry. Could you please ask me again?
Yeah. So I was wondering around the sort of building, because the building is such a big character in this picture. And because you mentioned in some ways, right, the destruction of homes is happening on so many different levels, whether that's through bombing in Palestine or whether that is through gentrification in Istanbul, or like a building like this, an abandoned building that is then not publicly accessible, but might become like a hotel or something expensive that is not accessible either. And so I was wondering if the building as a character is something that happens a lot in your work, or how story comes about in your work.
Usually building and space is important in my imagery, because people also make the spaces, and who is there and how the space looks like can tell a lot of stories. In my other works, the place and the people are usually bounded together. If I
You're muted suddenly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So usually in my works, the performer, the person that I take a photo, and the space are bounded to each other. Either it's the place that they live or they work, or the neighborhood that they live. So I think spaces in my works are important, because that can also tell the story about the person themselves.
Thank you so much. It really speaks from this image. And it's interesting, I had not picked up on Anatolia being the reference to Anadolu as the region or the island, right? Yes.
Yes.
Like, wow, that's actually quite funny.
Yes, she has a great name.
So it's wonderful to hear about your collaboration also. Thank you so much, İlkin.
Thank you so much.
We will be inviting Lola Rizo or CoCa MoTa onto our digital stage.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, should we just maybe play our intro video?
Yes.
Yes, I will. I will.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I just said Lola Rizo, but of course I meant PACHAQUEER. Pardon, that was me. That was my mistake.
The sound is missing.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any sound at the moment.
Estamos en guerra, estamos en guerra, estamos en guerra, estamos en guerra, estamos en guerra, estamos en guerra, estamos en guerra.
We are two Indian queer trans besties, artists, activists, and founders of PACHAQUEER, Espacio Libre de Arte, a dissident, rebel, self-sustaining, and self-festive trench of performance and politics, based in Ecuador since May 2013. Our mutant project is built together with comrades and collectives from different latitudes. We together conspire in the struggle against the oppression of any system of exclusion. We question the binarism and the necrocapitalistic rules imposed on gender, pleasure, and sexuality. Performance witches and monsters of gender, how we call ourselves, we seek to open spaces and dialogues away from violence and heteropatriarchal discrimination. We aim for the body emancipation and the liberation of thoughts.
Hi, everyone. We are La CoCa MoTa. We are from Ecuador. This is a rebel dissident project of performance and politics. And I think we wanted to have this little introduction for us because this was part of a performance that we shared on 2017 here in Ecuador around the murder of our sister Samuel, who was murdered here in Quito and cut it in pieces and throw it to the river. And we felt, well, we first, of course, want to thank for this invitation, and we want to thank Lola also for inviting us to be part of this window to share, you know, not only our solidarity, but also to share our fear, to share our force, and also to share our struggles. Here we are with CoCa, and yeah, we are trying also to make this happen in English, although, you know, another colonized language, but yeah, we're making an effort.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you for sharing your jobs. We are happy and pues para nosotras es necesario pues mostrar el trabajo que nosotras hacemos porque más allá de una plataforma artística, pues somos una plataforma comunitaria.
So I'll translate a little bit for us. So for us, it's important not only to show, as I said, like a piece of art, but our struggles and how we take performance as a way of healing.
Sí, bueno, estas son las imágenes de nuestro video.
Yeah, this is the images of our video, what you're watching right now. And while we think when we got the invitation to be part of this project is that, you know, it was a little, you know, tricky for us, like think of how can we create a piece of art around all this pain and suffering that is happening around the genocide of Palestine, and how we can, you know, like avoid not only taking this as a way of, you know, becoming an object of you know, or just like thinking as art again as just like a platform or you know, like as a place away of the actual suffering. So we wanted to put our bodies inside of this fear, inside of this pain. And we've been accompanying the Palestine stand-up, the strikes here in Quito, Ecuador, since, you know, months ago, since actually everything is being on the media and being on TV, all this massacre. And, but we feel that most of the times the strikes are just are only held by, you know, the hetero cis normative forces. And we think that we queer people need to be visible. We need to have our own place and our own voice to shout that we are in a permanent genocide. The queer people around the world, we are in a permanent genocide. And that is why we feel for the Palestine. That is why we cross our blood, and that is why we cross our fears, and we turn our fears into the strength that make us stand up together.
Sí, muchas veces en la revuelta social, en la lucha social, las cuerpas disidentes, LGBT, las personas trans, no somos parte de ellas, ¿no? Entonces, esa es una forma de decir, nosotras también estamos siendo oprimidas, también estamos siendo asesinadas, y el devenir de esta acción pues fue la represión. Aquí la policía, la autoridad, el Estado, pues mostró la misoginia y la LGBTI-fobia hacia nosotras.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do first is just, in first place, was of course going to the street in front of the Israeli Zionist embassy here in Quito, and we bring some fruits, some watermelons, we brought some candles, and we wanted to have this ritual with our sisters, to share our pain together and to hold and to resist. But in the middle of the action, we were attacked by the police. The police pulled us off. They attacked us. They hurt us with gas on our faces, and everything turned down. Everything was teared down, and we had to go away. We had to escape from there. And after some hours walking away, because the police did not leave us free, the police wanted to take us and to hurt us. We had to go away and find a place, a safe place where we could gather together again with our fellows and our partners, our sisters. And then we did finally the ritual that you will see in the video, that you're actually seeing now in the video, where we shared the fruit, where we did some prayers, and where we also I think just have also the company of our sister Rocio, Ruth. I'm sorry, with our sister Ruth, who's been walking with us together since her daughter was also murdered, and that's the voice you hear for the song of the video. And so yeah, I think, and also another thing that moved us to do this not to do, because I think this is not something we actually do. I think this is just something we take part of. And I think in that place, we started by this phrase saying, "Forgive us, Palestine," that we created on October, where we were in Turkey in the middle, we were lost in this, in this frontier utopia over there in Turkey on October last year, where all this televised murder started happening, this televised bombing started happening, and we were so shocked by this, and we were also being attacked at the same time by the Turkish state of mind, the Turkish regime. And for us was very kind of sad, to be so close and to be able of doing and not to be able of say or do something. And that is why I think this is also a way of healing for us now. So yeah, we want to thank the opportunity, and thanks for sharing the window with us.
Y bueno, para nosotras esto es la performance. Nosotras vemos la performance como una estrategia kamikaze de sanar, de curar, de compartir. Y a la final, pues la invitación que hicimos a ser parte de esta acción era una forma de sanar también lo que vivimos siendo personas trans y travestis fuera de nuestros países.
Yes, as trans and transvesti people, we just wanted to share with our friends, with our queer friends here in Ecuador. And we just wanted to finish our presentation.
Stop the video.
Yeah, you can stop the video, please. We wanted to share just a little words that we wrote. So from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the Andean to the sea, Palestine will be free. That was the first thing we should when we hit the rooted streets of the European in 2023. Today, the solidarity demonstrations for Palestine have spread all the regions, and they have banned in many nations also. But the cries for freedom will continue in many lyrics and many songs. The genocide is global. They block water, electricity, and telecommunications to murder without a cry or a prayer. Our memories will not forgive or remain quiet. Our bodies will not fall into the cruelty of the regime. Our monstrosity will not remain unnoticed anymore. And our history will not erase the blood they spilled over our bodies. Silence is also a weapon and can hurt. We have nothing to celebrate while our sisters are murdered. We, the bodies out of normality, live in constant genocide. Our dissidents are the strength of our resistance in this global massacre. Democracy is a lie of this empty, genocidal humanity.
You're muted suddenly. CoCa MoTa? You're muted the last little bit.
Oh,
The last
okay.
one
The
sentence.
last was, okay, just the last phrase. So silence is also a weapon that can hurt. We have nothing to celebrate while our sisters are murdered. We, the bodies of monstrosity, the bodies out of normality, live in constant genocide. Our dissidents are the strengths of our resistance and the global massacre. Democracy is a lie in this empty genocidal humanity, and our revenge is filled with grace when our lives and forces come together. Thank you.
Gracias, teşekkür ederim. Dankjewel. Thank you to everybody, to PACHAQUEER, CoCa MoTa, and to all the artists who have spoken tonight. It was really, really wonderful and impactful to hear you, and also the artists who did not present their work tonight, but are contributing to this exhibition. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Free
Free
Palestine.
Palestine. Thank you, 𝘗𝘀, and thank you, Seichan, for another edition. Congratulations to all the artists. With each launch and each gathering, we always try to have an online party. And of course, in the beginning of the pandemic, this was a big happening. Now it's getting a little harder to have people stay inside, which is good also for people. And one of the ways what we've been thinking about partying is not just because of the funds that are drying up for people working in nightlife, but also, of course, to inhabit sorrow and pain and dance it out together. And dance through it together. I want to thank again Ezra and Ona for translation. I also want to point people to the conversation that we had 2 days before Nakba commemoration, the annual Nakba commemoration in May with Nihal, Hanin, and Noor. You can find this also on the Through the Window Instagram. And I also want to thank Saskia Blom, one of our fans, that she's been here for many iterations, and we cannot do without people keep showing up. So thank you so much for that.